Alright, so once you get the hub off, it'll pop off. So what the seal we're looking for is this inner guy right here. So basically with a seal pick, you want to reach in there and pop that seal out. Or basically get in there with a seal pick. It looks like a hook. Reach in there and pop it out. Sometimes you can get lucky. Well, that's not working. So basically, pop this seal out. Like I said, get in there with a pick, pop that seal out, clean everything up, inspect that bearing, make sure that bearing's fine. Get that new seal, put that new seal in. Block of wood works really nice. Don't want to damage the inside of that seal. Once that seal's in, your bearing's all loose. Take it off, set it back in with a brass punch. The brass punch, you want to get in here with this inner seal. And what you're doing is you're just setting that, bringing that bearing and setting that bearing back in to where it needs to be. Try not to damage the threads around that top of that. As you see, it's going down. Once it gets to a certain degree, you can may need to go back in and just make sure that that bearing is seated all the way down. Once it's seated all the way down, you should have the clearance that you started with when you started pressing this hub off. Like I said, hopefully there will be a tool soon to where we can just put a piece of plate on there with a T-bar and lift this up completely. They do make a three jaw puller, which you can hook on each side with a center section, press on this, and pop it out towards you. And basically it's going back together the same way you took it apart. Make sure that your bearings are all clean. Set your bearing in. Once again, brass is probably about the best bet. Once your bearing's in and seated, you'll go back with a spanner nut. That'll get torqued. There's a procedure how to set the preload on these bearings, but for this I'm not going to install that right yet. I want to talk about these bearings. Like I said, there is thrust washers. There's needle bearings front and back, and inside you'll see there's a little washer there. Make sure when you go back together, if you're putting it in the dozer and you're on a horizontal, make sure that you're going back in, hold on to it, and slide it in very carefully. Then go back in with your and it should seat just fine. Do that to every one. Make sure, you can take a little bit of grease. Make sure there's grease in there so the needle bearings are not going to fall out when you slide it back in. So you want to make sure that they're nice and tight. Once you go in the dozer or into the torque hub, slide it in, hold it, grab yourself another wrist pin. Make sure that the pin that you're putting it in the correct way, it does have little ridges there. So you want to put it in there, give it a slight tap, and get it seated in there. Same procedure, following the third one, get the third one in there. Put the third one in. Something did not go right, so if it didn't go right, put your slide hammer back in, slide your pin out, see what happened, why it's not going in, which is a good reason why we're doing this, because we can make sure. Yeah, like I said, you have to make sure that your needle bearings are staying inside that gear. If they fall, they look like this. So then you're in here stacking needle bearings back into the realm. Make sure all your needle bearings are in there. Some grease works great. Just get them in there nice and tight. You can put the washer back on, the thrust washer back on. You want to pre-check it and make sure that the pin goes through all the way. Pin goes through nice. And then you can take it back out, put it back in. Make sure your pin's going in the correct way. Give it a slight tap. Now your bearings, your needle bearings and your gears are back in. Make sure you put the screws back in it. In the procedure book, there is a torque spec to it. Ask her, we can send you the specs on it, the breakdown of it, the whole thing. Sorry, I'm not prepared. So tighten those back up. But like I said, before you torque these down, you'll make sure that you torque that nut to the proper procedures that are in the manual for rebuilding this hub, or if you have to change that seal, that hub seal out. So once those are all back together, you know that's torqued and tight. Now you can reassemble. You can put the hat back on, but wait, there's one thing that we're missing. The O-ring. Make sure that there's a new O-ring in there. Put that down here in the groove. You can put a little bit of grease on there too to keep it from moving away from you. Once you get that on, remember the holes where your torque heads came to be. You may have to get in here with a small screwdriver or a pick and move those gears so they line up with the hat. A lot easier than it looks. Come on. Once it's good seated, you can take a hammer handle, get it seated down in there. Should be nice and flush. Nope. Hiding. Like I said, T40 torques. Once you get those in, you can tighten those up just snug. Don't have to be super tight. Once that's in, then you can go back to reassembling with the top gears. Those should slide. And you may have to move it around a little bit to get it to grab all 3 gears. And once you get that in, try not to force anything. So if it's not going, take it back out, rewound your gears, and it should fall right back into place. Your spring, make sure your spring's in there through the center of the hole. Make sure your shaft is the correct way. Short end goes in. Which I already messed up, because the shaft's got to go in before this gear goes in. That's not a problem. We just take it back out. Take it back out. Make sure you put your shaft in. Make sure it lines up. Make sure it spins down freely. Now you go back in with your gears. Over the top, it should set in. Once it sets in, you can put your sun gear in. Make sure it's in. Make sure you push it down. Once it pushes down, you'll feel it move. Once that's in, double check everything. Make sure everything is spinning freely. It's in. Now you can put your lid back on. Get your lid on square. This will take a little bit of a tap with a hammer. Get your snap ring. Like I said, don't get medieval with it. Set the one edge of your snap ring in and just work it around. It will go in. Once it goes in, seat it a little bit. Not too much, just enough to get it in. Put your cap on with your screws. Well, put your move it to where your fill plug is at 3 o'clock, or your fill plug is at 3 o'clock, and your other plug is at 12 o'clock. So you can fill one side, watch it come out, fill it all the way up with synthetic gear lube until it starts coming out. Tighten it up, let it sit for a little bit, double check it, put your sprocket back on, put your track back on, set it back on the ground, and good luck. All right, thank you for joining us here at Sutter Equipment. For any questions, please call Wade or Tony at Sutter, and we will help you up as much as we possibly can. I hope this video helps whoever's taking one of these torque hubs apart on the mini Sutter 300. Hope this was educational as it was for me. Thank you, and like I said, if you need anything, please call Sutter Equipment, ask for Tony and Wade in service, and we will help you as much as we can. Thank you.